the heartbeat of every organization lies not just in its vision, but in its people. People are the pulse, the energy, and the drivers of innovation and success.
And yet, in a world where opportunities are abundant, how do organizations ensure that their most talented individuals choose to stay, grow, and contribute? Today, we are here to explore that very question.
Welcome to XPLORATE 2025, the annual flagship event of the XIM-HR Alumni Committee of XIM University, in collaboration with the School of Human Resource Management. This event serves as a dynamic platform that strengthens alumni relationships while providing the current batch with valuable networking opportunities to connect, learn, and grow with their esteemed alums.
This year's theme is both timely and essential, driving employee longevity, fostering a culture that supports long-term business success through talent retention. We'll explore how building a supportive workplace culture can strengthen an organization's foundation, enabling it to thrive for years to come.
I'm Khushi Verma, and alongside me is my co-host Vashika Gupta. Together, we're thrilled to guide you through today's exciting schedule. From thought-provoking panel discussions to engaging case discussions, we have an eventful day ahead.
To set the stage, let us first welcome and felicitate our distinguished faculty and speakers whose presence today makes this event truly special. I request Professor Shubhra Patnaik Ma'am, Professor of the School of Human Resource Management, XIM University, to felicitate our distinguished guests. We have with us Mr. Satyadeep Mishra, the Chief Human Resources Officer at R Systems. Mr. Arnab Pal, the Executive Human Resources at Geostar. And Ms. Annapurna J, the Head of Group Talent at the Mahindra Group. For gracing us with your presence. We have with us Professor and Associate Dean of Career Advisory Services, XIM Bhubaneswar, Ms. Savita Mohanty. We would also like to acknowledge Father Anthony R. Uvri, S.J., the respected Vice Chancellor, XIM University, and Father Anthony Raj, S.J., the respected Registrar, XIM University, for their unwavering support for this event.
I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome our esteemed deans of other schools, faculty members, and also the students present here today. I take the privilege to welcome you all to this grand event. Thank you for joining us. To mark the beginning of this event with positivity and inspiration, we now invite our esteemed guests and faculty to join us for the ceremonial lighting of the lamp. To mark the beginning of XPLORATE 2025, we request Professor Shubhra Patnaik to kindly join the guests. We would also like Professor Savita Mohanty to kindly accompany Shubhra.
समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देवा सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा वक्रतुण्ड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देवा सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा।
Thank you, Akanksha, for the soulful rendition, and thank you so much, guests.
Thank you everyone for inaugurating this event with a ceremonial lighting of the lamp. This tradition symbolizes knowledge, wisdom and the enlightenment that we aim to achieve through today's discussions.
We would now like to invite Professor Subra Patnaik, Associate Professor of the School of Human Resource Management, XPLORATE University, to share her thoughts in the opening address.
Good morning. Welcome to XPLORATE 2025. Respected guests, panelists, our very own alums, welcome. You found time from your busy schedule to be with us. It's a great pleasure and honor to have you on this campus. My dear faculty colleagues, members of the media and my dearest students of both the batches for whom we are conducting this event, welcome all of you to this conclave, which is a little different from the conclaves that we usually have. XPLORATE 2025, we are conducting this in this forum, in this format, physically for the first time. In a physical mode. So that's a very nice thing. What makes it very different is the second half, where you have a case study where all of you can participate along with our distinguished alums and panelists. And I think that would have enriching insights for all of us and would be wonderful. So we do not have conclaves which are as interactive in the format that we have this one as. Right. And what we also discovered today is this venue, which I had not seen before. So thanks to the Alcom team for organizing this. Yes, you really deserve a great round of applause for all the arrangements and for having such distinguished alums with us today. About the theme, it's very interesting and probably very topical to all of you. Because longevity, when we talk about employee longevity, I don't know how many of you are already planning to switch. The organizations that you have been selected in campus, how many of you are already wanting to switch? No, you don't want to tell it now, but I know. So, most CEOs, I was just going through a report last week. 78% CEOs say that we are having sleepless nights because of the talent war. We don't know from where to source in talent, which we really need. And even if we source it, how do I keep that talent with me without losing it to competition? So a lot of innovative things that organizations are doing, especially when it is a multi-generational workforce. Expectations are very different. We have Gen X, we have Gen Y, we have Gen Zs. All of you are quite demanding. I don't know if you realize that, but you are. And then we also have Gen Alpha, which will enter into the workforce very soon. And we don't know how they are going to be. When I see my son at home, I feel scared. They're going to be extremely, extremely demanding probably. All of you are much better. Okay, so we don't know how to customize, hyper-personalize things so that everybody feels that yes, we have something in this organization which is for us, which I really like. Many organizations are taking innovative steps. Say for example, Snyder is now taking patches of land that it is giving to employees. Whenever you feel that you have time, you can go and do some gardening or some farming on your patches of land. So that's a very different thing to do. They have a wish tree which is there, and there are wishes, and you can pick up a wish and fulfill a wish. Right? So leaders are today talking about three things. One, definitely is agility, flexibility. Other is fairness and transparency, and hyper-personalization. These are the three things that leaders are speaking about, and policies are revolving around these three things. Learning and development suddenly is very, very important, because I think for Gen Zs, it has factored as one of the most important driving factors. Compensation has come in at the fifth factor, whereas flexibility, autonomy, learning and development has factored in the first three factors, which are very important to them. So, say PwC has now a new policy. If you want to go abroad and study, we will co-pay. We will meet the fees with you, but we will co-pay. Right? So Snyder is doing this, PwC is trying to facilitate learning and development for employees. VerbLogic, a very, very small e-commerce firm in Jaipur, you might have heard about it, is also giving employees Netflix leaves. Okay. Money Heist was released and employees had gotten Netflix leaves. Novaritis now believes in parental leave, not maternity or paternity leave. So, lot of new initiatives that organizations are doing. At the same time, we also have debates on 70-hour work week, 90-hour work week. So, we also have that side. Is this correct? Is that correct? Is anyone wrong? I don't think so. But values are different, expectations are different, the way we look at life is also different, and we all are operating from different life positions. So the whole point is, how do we balance all of these and take the organization forward? I think that is all I wanted to say to set the context, because our panelists here have rich experience and they are the best people to answer these questions as to how we can balance all of these and retain talent with us. So with this, I welcome all of you again to XPLORATE 2025, and I pass on the space to all our esteemed guests and of course Professor Sanjay, who is here to moderate the panel discussion today. Over to the MCs.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your inspiring words and for always leading us with such dedication and wisdom. We would now like to introduce our esteemed guests for the day, the celebrated alums of Xavier's Institute of Management, Bhubaneswar.
It is a privilege to announce our distinguished guest and a proud alumnus of the Xavier Institute of Management, Bhubaneswar, class of 1999, specializing in human resource management, Mr. Satyadeep Mishra. He is a seasoned HR leader. With over 2 decades of experience, having made remarkable contributions to some of the most respected organizations in the industry. Sir currently serves as the Chief Human Resource Officer at R Systems, driving impactful initiatives in talent management and organizational development. His illustrious career includes serving as the Chief Human Resource Officer at CleverTrap, where he played a pivotal role in strengthening HR strategies and fostering a high-performing culture. Prior to this, he was the Chief People Officer at OYO, where he contributed significantly to building HR frameworks during a critical phase of global expansion. With his diverse experience spanning multiple industries and regions, Sir has established himself as a thought leader in HR practices, leadership development, and strategic workforce planning. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in extending a warm welcome to Mr. Satyadeep Mishra, an exemplary leader and respect and an inspiration to professionals everywhere.
Now, we have among us another notable alumnus from the class of 2002, Ms. Annapurna J, a passionate people leader and a driving force in talent transformation. With over 2 decades of leadership experience, she has been instrumental in shaping talent strategies, fostering leadership excellence and aligning people practices with business success. With a proven track record in shaping high-impact talent strategies, Ms. Annapurna currently serves as the head of group talent at the Mahindra Group, where she leads strategic talent initiatives for one of India's most dynamic and diversified conglomerates. Prior to this, she was the head of talent and organization effectiveness at Mahindra Logistics, where she built leadership pipelines and strengthened organizational capabilities. Her career reflects the depth, diversity, and an unwavering commitment to HR excellence with leadership roles at Vodafone Idea Limited, International Paper, and IBM. At Vodafone Idea, she played a crucial role in driving large-scale transformation as the Vice President of Business Partnering, Culture, Communication, Change, and Diversity and Inclusion. At the heart of her work lies a profound passion for leadership development, ensuring that organizations are not just equipped for today, but are the building leaders of tomorrow. From global talent management and succession planning to HR transformation and leadership capability building, MAP has shaped and influenced the next generation of leaders across industries. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Annapurna J.
Next, we are privileged to have among us our third speaker for the event, an accomplished alumnus with a stellar career in HR, Mr. Arnab Pal from the class of 2005. Arnab is from the PGDM course of the class of 2005. Apart from being this, he is the person who gave the name Illuminatics to the media and PR cell. He was also the member of the most successful quiz team in the history of this institute. In the year 2004, XIMB was among the 24 teams from over 200 colleges and universities of India to make it to the finals of the BBC University Challenge on national television. In his 20 years career post being with Star India, he has worked with many organizations, but for the last 12 years plus, he has been with Star India in its different avatars like Fox, Disney, and now Reliance. He is currently the Executive Director HR and Lead HR VP for Corporate Functions with JioStar, the media joint venture between Reliance Industries Limited and the Walt Disney Company.
Please join us in welcoming Mr. Arnab Pal. A warm welcome and heartfelt thanks to our distinguished speakers for joining us today. Your presence adds immense value to this event and we look forward to the knowledge and perspectives that you will share with us.
To mark this special occasion, we invite you to our first segment, an engaging and insightful panel discussion. Today, we delve into a very compelling topic with our esteemed panelists who will share their invaluable perspectives. Our discussion centers on driving employee longevity, fostering a culture that supports long-term business success through talent retention. Get ready for an enriching exchange of ideas.
The discussion will be of 45 minutes followed by a Q&A session of 15 minutes. To guide the discussion, we have the privilege of having Professor Sanjay Bhattacharya, Assistant Professor at the School of Human Resource Management, Exam University, as our moderator for today. Before joining Exam University, Sir was an Assistant Professor of Human Resource Management and Organizational Behavior at the Symbiosis Center for Management and Human Resource Development, SMHRD, Pune. He is a UGC NET qualified HR professional and holds a PhD in Organizational Behavior from the Symbiosis International University and Jamia, New Delhi. With diverse experience in corporate HR roles at organizations like Genpact and Videocon, Sir brings us a wealth of knowledge to this field. Thank you, sir, for being a part is all yours.
Thank you very much, and a very warm welcome to all our panelists, my dear students, my colleagues. It sounds very interesting because when we talk about employee longevity, there are various schools of thoughts and various notions that are making their rounds. One way of looking at longevity may be the amount of time an employee chooses to spend in the organization, but at the same time, the onus lies on the employee or the organization to ensure that their stay in the organization is meaningful or worthwhile or not. So we are going to delve into that. Just yesterday, I was reading through Gallup's State of the Workforce Survey 2024 report, wherein an interesting stat crossed my mind. It's like, it says that 86% of Indian employees are either suffering or struggling. Okay, so their eventual longevity and retention may be at a jeopardy, but we don't know. We will try to explore more. So somewhere, since we have the leaders here, somewhere, if we look at it from a top-down approach, the leadership has to play an important role in this entire journey of the longevity. So, if I may just open the forum by asking the first question, that what are some of the leadership qualities or practices that you may have encountered or put in place to ensure that you build a supportive culture which looks at longevity in a very supporting way and supports it all throughout? So, if you would like to take it up.
Thank you, sir. I think for me, longevity without meaningfulness or purpose is a waste of time for both the organization and the employee, right? And therefore, for organization, it is imperative that they create meaningfulness, right? And create a framework where people feel comfortable, feel at home, right? Feel being taken care of, feel being valued, so that they can give their best back to the organization. So leaders play the role of, I think there are two roles, right? One is role modeling, the behaviors that encourage people or give a feeling to the people that your leaders really do care, right? They really strive to have a growth and learning mindset themselves, right? And they do not end up getting an impression that working for this organization is really, really tough, right? And it takes very conscious effort from leaders to create that sort of an architecture, be it through strong policy frameworks or practices, or through defining behaviors and practicing behaviors. That goes a long way in terms of making the organization an organization people love to work for and give their best, right? So I do believe what leaders unnecessarily rely a lot on is frameworks, policies, certification, emulating best practices they see elsewhere. I think what they don't realize that more often than not, what they do in real life on the floor of the business has more impact and more value in terms of creating that feeling as to whether this organization is progressive, the organization cares about its employee, and the organization really sees every employee as a whole person, right? Wherein job is just a part of just one part of their life, right? There's a larger part of their life which is beyond job, right? And given the demands that we have in today's workplaces, so while you can't do anything about the number of hours, but how do you extend your work to your employees' lives or integrate their lives into the work is something that is again done through examples or role modeling. So leader as an architect of the culture, right, and leader as a role model, both are equally important for top leaders to kind of keep in mind while looking at retention with a purpose.
So So in a way, it's more like walking the talk and leading by example. That should be of primary importance as far as setting the culture in place is concerned.
Absolutely, right? I mean, I'll give you a simple example. I mean, we can all say, oh, we promote work-life balance, right? And or we promote work-life integration, but if the CEO and the CXO team themselves are clocking, X number of hours a day, and people see that, that goes against the notion that yes, we are promoting work-life balance, right? Because in as many unstated word, you are telling the next layer and the layer below that what we really value is hard work, or longer hours at work, right? So it's very important that you role model the behaviors that you want to see in others, right? And be very conscious about the fact that often your behavior has much more impact and power than any HR policies on the organization.
Annapurna, your thoughts on this idea of walking the talk, and then leading by example rather than relying a little less on the cognitives, but more on the behavioral side. What would be your take on this?
Firstly, Professor, thank you for giving me this opportunity, and whatever I talk is in my personal capacity and not necessarily a representation of the group. I can share an example, a live example that I had, which was given to me when I had joined HCL Technologies as a management trainee. I was often told the story of a boy who had a call, during those days, this is 90s, and so you necessarily got your client calls over landlines. And he had collected the landline numbers of the railway stations that he would generally take to do the selling, and this is boxes, desktop boxes that had to be taken and sold. And whenever they used to be, the nearest railway station number is what he would pass it on and say, "Is number pe phone kijiye, main mil jaunga." And the station master would call up that boy saying, "Tum station pe ho kya?" So this is the call that we had got, and he would immediately get down and go and sell it. Now, Mr. Nadar once called this boy to his office and said, "Why are you doing this?" And he said, "The purpose is not about how many numbers or boxes I sell. The purpose is, do I bring value to the client in terms of what he is looking?" And so therefore, for me, legacy is not about how many years I live with you in this organization, but legacy is when you find my name on the walls of this company without being written. And this story kept moving from one generation to another, and I joined the company after 10 years of that boy, and that boy was Vineet Nayyar, who later on became the CEO of the company. And went on to institute HCL Government, and then became HCL Technologies. Long story short, I think all that we are talking about is purpose and impact. Leadership is a collective journey of purpose, which people can relate individually. And then, when you are able to relate to it individually, you automatically look at what is the impact. No organization then has to do anything which comes. Everything else, a child care leave, a parental policy, a good HR policy, everything is micros. The macro is basically purpose and impact. If a manager understands this with an empathy, that's done, your job is done. You have the employee with you forever. That's leadership for me.
That was a fantastic anecdote that you shared. I think I would love to quote it in my engineering session with the students, to be really honest with you. That is amazing. So Arnav, coming to you again, talking about walking the talk and then building the legacy. Now, legacy should not be counted on the number of years that I spent, right? But the impact that I have had. So the purpose, impact, clubbed together. What is the leadership notion for you in creating that supportive culture for longevity?
Thank you, sir, and thank you everyone for having me over here. I come from, first of all, I have been with the current organization for almost 13 years. So the notion of longevity definitely seems to be working in my case personally. Though frankly speaking, after I had left XIM, in my first 9 years I had changed 8 jobs. So when I had joined this organization, my primary agenda was that I'll at least spend 5 years and get my gratuity this time. But I think, again, I'll try to take a more storytelling approach to this answer because it's probably my own story. Every year there would be enough opportunities or enough reasons for me to want to leave and go somewhere else. But there was always something which was keeping me back. Sometimes it was about the work that I was doing. Sometimes it was the person that I was working with. Sometimes it was the business leaders who gave me a seat at the table, and I almost changed my roles a few times within the same organization. And sometimes it was just colleagues and friends who are now almost part of my family, with some of them like literally aunts and uncles to my daughter. So as you grow older, there are many of these things also which start playing a role in your decision making around longevity. Now that's my side of the story. The organization also possibly has seen enough reasons to keep me around, because it's not necessarily kept everyone around, which if I think of the pre-COVID paradigm of every newspaper and magazine talking about war for talent, I think the conversation now is more about the great adjustment that we are seeing, where organizations are not necessarily continuously thinking about retention and longevity, but more in terms of, do we have the right talent? Is this talent going to let us survive? And some of the finest organizations in this country, which were probably aspirational employers for someone like me when I started my career, seem to have disappeared, not there. And these are great organizations, great people practices, great talent. But in the scheme of organization's survival, I believe talent is now not the only thing. Probably the talent quadrant is a bit shrinking, because there are so many other things which end up disrupting successful organizations, and more we are hearing that, look, you wake up one day morning and you hear that organization is not there. It's been bought by someone, it's been sold by someone, or it's shut down.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the notions that we studied or we just talked about a few years ago will necessarily be relevant a few years from now. And that scares me, because are we going to be able to cope up with so much change? Are human resource professionals going to be able to guide the organizations through scenarios where they themselves don't know what the future holds? The level of predictability seems to be dropping so fast that I feel jobs for HR folks are becoming intensely difficult and stressful in the coming years.
So taking a cue from this particular statement, don't you think at this juncture, when there is so much of rapid change, and as you said, one fine morning you wake up and you don't know whether the company exists or not, it's been bought, sold or whatever, in this context, the term longevity does not sound a bit dichotomous, creating a conflict wherein whether the organization would survive or sustain or not, whether the employees are actually, or if the talent is actually the buzzword. So should there be a focus on employee longevity, or should there be some added focus on some other aspects? What's your take on that?
I think the mix has to be around longevity, but layered with a bit of agility. And I know the term learning agility has been around for a while, but it's becoming more and more now the prevalent thought around tagging employees. Earlier the layering of high potential or talent or must retain talent was around performance and other leadership skills. There was not so much conversation around that, will this person be able to learn new? Will he be able to get new scenarios, technologies, consumer behavior and those kind of things? I think that is becoming more important. I think when that box gets ticked, organizations actually are now going that extra mile more to retain what they believe are critical talent. So, longevity is also about your ability to package yourself as somebody who the organization needs long term. Years of experience is not going to cut it anymore.
Okay. So, Annapurna, taking a cue from this notion, what do you think can be some of the key cultural elements that organizations should foster to ensure they have that kind of agility or agile mindset amongst their employees? What cultural elements that can be worked upon by the organizations, do you think?
Such a broadly purpose, like I said, for the organization is something that the purpose that the individual should be able to relate to. I represent a group where I have auto on one side and tech M on the other. An auto can never work with a work from home concept. I necessarily have to have people to come into office and run the assembly chains. However robotized I can make it. On the other hand, I can ensure the entire tech hem works from home without the client getting disrayed. I also have Mahindra Finance on one hand and a logistics on the other. A logistics is basically a 24/7 essential services industry. But surprisingly, I can ensure things can work partly here on a distance mode or a work from home kind of a thing, despite being a essential services act, which means that there are 24 industries that the government of India calls out as that cannot be closed down. One of which also happens to be logistics. But I also have financial services, which actually is not a 24/7 operations, but again cannot work from home. So the meat of the storyline is that there is no one cookie cutter approach that can cut everyone. Each organization has to find its own ethos and elements that can drive it. One can possibly you make them agile through AI or technology. But the fundamental problem that we run into it is we find a hammer first and then start looking for a nail. So today's hammer is AI and technology, and now you want to fix it with the nail and you are now looking for the nail to fix it. That's the other challenge that one runs into, so you have to hold that. Sometimes maybe Excel sheet is best, you don't need any AI. So to each his own, and one has to find that spot as to what works for you. In all this, what an employee needs is basically to ensure, are you up to the game? And when you say are you up to the game, you are dealing with, does this fit into with your, and I always want to be the number one slot given to me, but number one is always which will go to an investment bank or a consulting company. Despite, and all the conglomerates get the second slot, me, TAS, everyone included. Now despite that, why do I still end up going to these campuses? It helps me evaluate where the talent pool stands. What has changed in the talent pool's mind, and therefore me as an organization, what do I have to change? I'm not necessarily looking to have that talent, but I really want to understand what they want from me as an organization. I have other mechanisms of hiring them. 2 years down the line or 3 years down the line, when they are fed up with the investment banking work-life imbalance, they always come to me. So what works for you? That's the approach.
So Pradeep, what would be your take on the same aspect? I completely agree, right? There's nothing called one size fits all, right? Culture is very contextual. I think across every industry, every company, there's extremely intense, ambition to be successful. Macros and micros are not necessarily in favor of many industries, and therefore it is very important for the leaders to anticipate what's the kind of culture that's required for now and for future, right? And that's one, that's one leadership competency which is probably underrated. Your ability to anticipate, the future, your ability to understand the headwinds. Tailwinds always, help you, but headwinds and being very critical about the headwinds is very important. And what worked for you yesterday may not work for you today, right? From a talent perspective, right? So therefore, if you look at today's talent and across all generation, right? While as much as we would like to think about generational approach to talent, irrespective of which generation that you belong to, I think it's important for someone to be convinced that they are creating value for the organization through their work, and they are creating values for themselves. It's always give and take, right? Nobody walks on a single-way street or highway, right? And therefore, it is important for the organization to understand what values they can create. Right? For some, it is about creating values through a lot of additional, responsibility, so that people can grow early in their career, and that's what startups are, have done, right? They've created CXOs, late 20s, early 30s, right? You switch the context to some like Reliance. Now that he's back in Reliance, he would kind of probably echo some of my sentiments. It was always about how you look at a large conglomerate, right, the largest in the country, and figure out in each pockets of the organization, be it in petrochemicals or something like Geo, which was a brand new telco which was getting created from scratch, what is the talent that would help you be successful in the long run, right? And therefore, what sort of cultural context, right, you would create in a Geo versus what you would create in petrochemicals or hydrocarbons. Having said that, what sort of a common leadership view that you would like to create, right? So I think talent today are not looking at just a job. They are looking at a place which sets them for success, what they currently doing, and also in the future, right? So those organizations which are forward looking in terms of their own quest of success in future, and setting up talent programs or a mindset or a culture which also promotes people to think about long-term career, right? Not necessarily within the same organization, right? Employability, in terms of learning agility. Long time back, Mr. Murthy coined something called learnability at Infosys, which is about, are you able to learn from your past experience and apply that in a new situation, which could be very different compared to what you've done in the past. I think people are looking for organizations who are directly, indirectly pushing people towards that growth mindset, that learnability, so that they can grow in their career, not necessarily in the same organization.
Right. So, Arnab, I would like to come to you. Satyadeep spoke about headwinds, the importance of headwinds. Tailwinds are driving us, but headwinds. So, how can companies go beyond the basic engagement surveys or initiatives to genuinely connect with the employees, understand their needs, and drive loyalty over time, because that in some way would actually double up as headwinds for me as well. So how can I go beyond the traditional engagement surveys and other interventions to drive that loyalty?
I think when I came in here today, the faculty members I met, Professor Savita Mohanty, being associated with this institute and its other avatars for now 38 years. Now, here I was an employee who typically was targeting 5 years. Aim small, miss small in an organization, and when I had joined Star. Over a period of time, somewhere along, obviously, the organization moved from Fox to Disney. So, it was very interesting that period of time when I worked with Walt Disney organization, because you get to meet a lot of people who are also part of a larger Disney organization. And this is my personal perspective about Walt Disney. It has nothing to do with my work. It's just, any of you can probably encounter it in many other organizations. It could have been with Mahindra, or it could have been with Reliance. Almost every second person I used to meet in Disney would be saying, I've been here 30 years, 35 years, 40 years. First of all, I came to a conclusion that there is no age of retirement in Disney, it seems. At least in the United States. Everybody, and then people would say, I work here, my husband works here, my son works here, my grandson has joined the internship program at Disney. It seemed there were entire families which were employed by Disney. People, when they would get a job with Disney, would move their housing or accommodation to as close to the park as possible, so that they could visit the park 20 times a year because there was free entry. And Disney was by far not the highest paymaster by any standards. It did not give the fanciest of tools or gadgets, but it made you feel that you are truly the center of the universe for the organization. The way the communication would be to employees, the way certain things would come to somebody's desk to remind him about his or her important milestones, days in an organization. Suddenly somebody from somewhere in the world would ping you and thank you for something that you have done. It truly just fostered a culture of being continuously reminded that you are working at the happiest place in the world. You matter. They're not called colleagues or employee or dear all or hi all. Dear cast member. Everybody is a member of the cast. From the person who wears the suit of a Mickey Mouse and walks around for 6 hours inside a park, to somebody who's probably taking a decision in South Korea to buy a K-pop series costing a few $1 million. Everybody, and the last time I saw somebody who was featured on the employee LinkedIn of Disney was somebody who was basically taking care of basic hygiene services at the park, because cleanliness is very important because you are dealing with children. Maybe a lot of organizations would talk about, no, every job is important, but the way Disney lives it was something I thought it took away from my 5 years working with that organization and brand. Necessarily, were they successful in every geography that they have gone to, every business that they have entered? Absolutely not. They have probably failed way many more times than most other organizations. But it has survived 100 years because I think the bedrock is around reminding people that they are important. And sometimes, as an organization, they are probably that one of those last organizations where longevity is valued above everything else. Even sometimes when they feel that maybe it's not your best year, it's not going great for you, they'll still stick with you because you have stuck with the organization. Very old school, you might think, but I believe in these waves of new things that come from industrialization to deep seek today. I think sometimes some basic tenets will help organizations survive. Headwinds will come, tailwinds will come, some side winds may also happen. But these are the ones that will survive.
So, in a way, like again coming back, the purpose, intent, and its impact. That definitely makes a lot of sense. So we have heard so many good stories now. Annapurna, let's just kind of flip the coin. Like from your experience, what are some of the most common mistakes organizations make that becomes counterproductive with respect to longevity and they tend to lose people, and how those can be avoided in the modern day context?
Sanjay, everyone wants to latch on to the bandwagon. The most recent fad is what catches up. That fad lasts for about a year and a half at max. Smaller economic cycles of business, smaller fad cycles accordingly, and therefore this doesn't last long. Before pandemic, work from home was something which only progressive organizations looked at. Pandemic made it a must. Everyone jumped the bandwagon, and then they said this is going to be the way the future will be. Today we are trying to make it hybrid and still it doesn't work. You have to get back to work at some point. So the reality is that every organization is trying to understand if it is here for long and are we being late in adapting. So the line of balance that any organization can do, and the quicker it can take a call on it, is the best one. And I think even elephants can dance. If IBM could change, I think every organization can change, and that's a fundamental mistake that organizations make. I'll give you our story, and there are subsidiaries in our groups which decide to go by D&I as an imperative, and therefore they say unless you don't have the numbers necessary, you will not have the equal voice. You cannot necessarily have a voice without having the numbers in place. So first pull up your numbers, and then let's talk about what next. There are others in the group who say in your bid to pick up the numbers, are you compromising on quality? Okay. And while we are still debating and trying to come to a consensus about D&I, which is predominantly gender in India, conversations on disability and persons of disability have already started in some of the other progressive organizations. For example, Bank of America, recently I was with them, and they have started talking about how some of this set of talent brings to the core, and they cut out the noise with the rest of the so-called normal people have. They have blind bond traders, and their productive numbers have shown that they give them the best results, because they are able to cut out the clutter which a normal person cannot do. He's still grappling with the graphs, trying to go through the colors of the graphs, while this person who can't see anything is just processing information and say, we rely on that particular thing. So they are on a different trajectory. So each organization is therefore trying to see how best, and at this pace, PD or disability as a conversation will catch up in not more than 15 years from now. But these conversations have happened. Fashion houses want to hire kids with ADHD because they understand design and structures better than a normal person, one who is only using the analytical side of the brain and not necessarily the right brain. So therefore, I think for every organization, they have to define the business that they want in and accordingly see how the future talent looks like. The camera did not get killed because of a competitor, the camera got killed because of a mobile phone. So I think we really don't know when you switch a light on, the bulb possibly somewhere else. So one has to figure out which is the switch that one has to figure out. Each organization has to go there for figuring out where that is. Design thinking as a concept was something which was relatable only to designers at one particular point of time. Today design thinking is something every CXO goes through to design the product. It's a base skill. So I think that's where it is.
So in this context, Satyadev, if I may ask you, pre-COVID, yes, we were work from home, and now post-COVID, now it has become a necessity. We are trying to work out there with the hybrid model and so on and so forth. So in this hybrid and remote work setting, how can organizations actually preserve a strong and connected culture? Or can we not?
Very interesting question, tough as well, and I'm going to share my point of view. I think COVID and events like COVID's changed the way we look at our lives, right? And what is important for us, what is important for my family, what are my priorities, everything got reset during COVID, right? And that reset is here to stay. So if organizations are trying their best to reset that reset, they would fail. Right? So flexibility is here to stay. Now what we need to do as HR leaders or business leaders is to find out the best use case of that flexibility depending on the business that you're in. And I've been a man of multiple industries, so therefore again, multiple solutions would work. What would work for Oyo would be very different compared to what would work for CleverTab versus what would work for our system, which is essentially a mutually giving services company when we work for customers. Right? Our employees develop, engineering and digital transformation solution for our customers. So therefore, there's always this, keenness in the top leaders to have all employees around them, right? Because when you're doing creative solutions or product, having a team around gives you that chance to interact and solution will become better quality and so on and so forth. But that's far away from reality. That's not what employees want to do, right? Today, in a small company like our systems, about 4,500 strong, and India probably has 3,000 of these people. 60% of our workforce is remote. They're in different places because they got hired during COVID, right? And it's very difficult to imagine to plug them out from the comforts of their life, right? Because that's going to impact their productivity and our productivity, right? So to answer your question, in a scenario like this, you have, 3-4 levers that you need to kind of be very conscious about. These are superpowers, right? Communication, right? And communication is free, right? And communication doesn't always have to be very formal. Communication doesn't have to be top down, doesn't have to be serious, right? Communication, collaboration, communities are something which can be very informal, very powerful to create that bond amongst a hybrid force, right? And the second thing that I've seen is how do you leverage this concept called communities of practice. I got introduced to it when I was in Geo, and Geo is a very large organization, and what we realized is that the formal structures won't really create future leaders, right? Or the formal structure is not necessarily what a great software developer clamor for, right? They clamor for creativity, they clamor for safe space, they clamor for rapid experimentation, failure, wherein the manager is not looking over their work, or hey, we'll do a quarterly conference, and this was COVID, bang in the middle of COVID, and Arnav knows how high touch Geo's culture is, right? So this was, we didn't even know. I was leading HR for all of Geo technology, and I didn't even know what needs to happen. So we started doing something called a quarterly conference, where every quarter there will be a theme, and then we got young people, right, from a particular talent segment to nominate themselves to talk, right? And then we kind of realized, oh, there are 5 people who are great in building, multi-tier Java, microservices applications and products, and we created Java community of practice. From 5 it became 50, and then from 50 it became 100, all remote, right? And this group then started creating common frameworks which could be used by a GeoTV, by a GeoMoney, by a Geo retail organization, right? The entire identity and access management solution came out of this practice. So this again, you have to create platforms and forums as leadership as an organization which gets people to come together around purpose, around a region for getting together, right? And the other thing which really helps is a very important but often ignored layer, which is line managers, right? Right, we all focus on leadership development, leaders for the future, and so on and so forth. But hey, works get done in a work unit, which is depending on whichever industry, it could be large, small, medium. But it's managed by an individual who is the manager, and the poor guy and the girl has a Herculean task in this space and in this age wherein strategies are rapidly changing because market forces are changing. Employees who are actually creating the creative world, they don't know what the strategy is changing. So they are in the middle. Their job is to understand the strategy, translate it to something which is more meaningful, actionable, exciting for people who are working for them in the organization. And how do we really create a sense of passion, purpose, and empowerment in that layer, right? Again, there are formal programs, but they often don't help, right? How do you kind of create that community, make them feel informed, make them feel empowered, give them some space to operate, take some decision, than always decision having to come from top down. And I've done some experimentation, some worked, some failed, but can't ignore the importance of managers when it comes to creating a productive organization in matter of hybrid work and remote work. And finally, the evil word of culture, right? How do you create a culture wherein if you're not coming to work, you're like seen as somebody who's like a villain, right? And I'll give you a very small example. We kind of realized that in our system we can't get people back to work, right? And I was the first one who stood up and said that if that is going to be my OKR as a new CHRO, I'm failing, right? I'm not going to deliver that because I'm not convinced. I'll come because my role requires me to come, but I can't get the developers back, right? But how about finding out people? And then we realized we're headquartered in Noida, but I have 100 people in Gurgaon, I have 200 people in Delhi, right? I have some people in Bhubaneswar, right? So we kind of looked at cities where we have anything more than 50 people, and we have decided we'll open a co-working space there. So that gives these people to at least come together, so that there's a little bit of bonding, some identity, because social connections are important. So getting the office to people versus getting people back to office, very interesting concept, but we're experimenting with that. It's going to cost us some money, but so be it, right? For the sake of collaboration, social connect, and identity, and things like that. That's the my mind.
Great. In my personal opinion, this conversation should go on and on, to be very honest, but because of the paucity of time, I would like to throw the forum open for questions. So, students, participants, if you have any specific questions, you are more than welcome. Ask those questions, and our esteemed panelists will answer your questions.
Thank you to all our panelists for such a thought-provoking discussion. Now we'd like to open the floor for the question and answer session. Kindly raise your hands and we will pass on the mic to you.
Good morning everyone. My name is Adesh. I'm from the batch of 24-26 MBHRF. So my question to you is, in this remote and hybrid work culture that we have, how can we bring up more longevity and employee retention in all these, especially IT sector?
I'll make an attempt. I think what's important, since we're living it every day, is I think three things. One is the work, right? Engineers clamor for good work, right? And good doesn't have to be cutting edge. Right? Good has to justify their skills, their competence, and a little bit of their aspiration as to how they want to grow. So, making sure that you have a right fit in terms of the work, right? Because your developer could be anywhere, the manager is sitting in office, or again, he could be anywhere.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. We are back. Thank you for having all three of us. It's a lot of time and patience from your end. We didn't have a lot of time for Q&A. We're cognizant about that, but just wanted to know, what did you folks set out to do, hearing from this set of people, and what do you think you would want here? Because did we actually give what you want at the end of your time with us? Is all that I'm cognizant about. Then we don't need a case study. In case you, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Are there any further questions, unanswered, something that is nibbling at you, which you would have wanted us to talk, but because of the paucity we couldn't?
Can I ask both of you a question on behalf of the batch? Okay, so first to Arnab, right? And same question to both of you. What advice would you give to your younger self if you're to, start your career in HR?
Actually, even before starting the career in HR, I would give some advice to my younger self who came to study at XPLORATE, not this campus, the older, more rundown version. And again, no intention to offend anyone over here. I think I probably could have been nicer to people during my 2 years and made more friends. I did not have the disadvantage of high-speed internet and mobile phones at that point of time. So probably I still have some meaningful relationships. But for you all, my suggestion is look up from your phones, iPads, laptop, MacBooks, and you have an opportunity of knowing 3 times more number of people than we had. So do use it. Otherwise, you will probably regret it 20 years down that I'm going to a particular city, I know classmate is there, but we never connected on campus, so I don't know if I really want to pick up the phone and give a call. Human interaction is terribly undervalued at this age and will exponentially become more valuable as you grow older. It might sound a bit silly at this stage, given how stressed and stretched you are for time. Second is, I know everybody's out here primarily to get placed. Try to at least remember some of the stuff that you study over here. Again, as it gets further and further away from the day you have graduated, you will remember less, but what you will remember or what you would have absorbed will become the base of decision making, and there will be moments in your career where if you are not thorough, you will feel scared about taking decisions, you will feel underconfident, and that's where things start going wrong. So those are the 2 things.
it's a dichotomy that I still carry a lot of self-doubt about if I'm good enough or not. And I have been put at the forefront to look at talent. And that sums up the life story. Okay. I don't think so. In my younger days, I would beat myself up for having so much of self-doubt and how others were more confident. I think it's great that I have a lot of self-doubt. It just makes me more alert. That's about it. I possibly am a person good with smaller groups and not great with larger groups. And I would always beat myself up during my younger days. How will I talk in a group? It's great now I feel about it because it just makes me more personalized. I therefore have come to the conclusion we are great the way we are. We don't have to change anything. Accepting, not hurting others with our attitude. Today it may not sound well, but be collaborative and not competitive. And collaboration doesn't start with the other person. Collaboration starts with what we put on the table, and maybe multiple times before even the other person can come to the table. And as a mother of a 15-year-old, that's what I'm trying to impart to my own kid before I give advice to all of you. So, the world is a better place with collaboration and not competition. And it works. Thanks.
Sir, ma'am, should we take a few more questions from the panel discussion round, or should we move on to the case study discussion?
As long as they are comfortable, we are
Okay.
My suggestion is more questions from the students. The case study,
Study the case study.
you all should be able to figure it out even without us.
I think you have three folks from Exanity, right? Three different generations, if we could put it that way. Three very different industries, right? So this is your opportunity to ask questions, and I think one advice I would have given to my younger self is to ask questions, right? And as you start your career, you realize that often questions are much more powerful than answers. Right? So please do ask questions, do not hold yourself back. Do not worry about how confident your question is, whether you are the best communicator around, right? But please interact. Love to interact. We go for another couple of hours, so go ahead and ask questions. Sorry. So please do ask questions, interact, and we're here to help, right? And we're not guests, right? We're like really home boys and girls.
The floor is now open for the Q&A session. Please raise your hands to ask your questions.
Question.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am V. Niharmai from MBA HRM, batch of 24-26. So, speaking about the topic that is driving employee longevity, one thing that I've actually learned from the panel is the policies are the micros, and actually sticking with the employees because they stick with you is what the organizations usually follow. Can we have a little bit more information about how to foster a culture of the internal mobility to actually support the employees that are willing to see a long-term career with the organization and are not searching for any other opportunities?
Simple, straightforward answer is raise your hand and ask for the job. Just go and sell yourself saying I'm the best fit for this job for the ABC reasons. As simple as that. I was telling Professor Sanjay, it's just been 1 year for me with the group. By the 6th month I was told I was moving into a group role from a subsidiary company role. Only because I said yes, maybe I bring something better to the role which the others in the group didn't have. That's simple. So which is what Arnab was trying to say, agility is all about trying to sell yourself as well and what you bring to the table. And I said, collaborate more than compete. So I was collaborating in terms of saying, hey, this is what I bring to the table, so why not me?
Just a little follow-up question. From the organization's point of view, if I'm looking for fresh talent and also have to focus on loyalty, so which one would I focus on at that point of time? And I do understand that one size fits all is not something relevant here.
Every organization only focuses on what the individual brings to the table. The person, sorry, I'm not, don't take me otherwise, and this can possibly be a little bit of an extreme joke. One of my business heads in Vodafone used to say, when we say, वो सबसे पुराना आदमी है, his go-to line used to be, गार्ड साहब को बोल दो वो सबसे पुराना आदमी है, 30 साल से वही सीट गर्म कर रहा है. Okay? So I don't think the longevity is about the timelines. Longevity is what we bring to the table. And therefore, even from an organization perspective, whether a fresh candidate or a candidate who has been there for long, they will always also want to look at what does this individual bring to the table.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. I'm Rujita from MBA HRM batch of 24-26. So, sir, you spoke about the culture of Disney. So, as opposed to Disney, Netflix has a really highly performance-driven culture. They are paying top of the market, and they don't really have rules for the employees. They focus a lot on autonomy. So do you believe that as opposed to Disney, this kind of culture also fosters employee longevity?
Netflix, and I have never worked at Netflix. Everything that we hear or know about Netflix is also a bit of a urban legend nowadays. So not necessarily everything that you have heard, read is true or untrue. But I don't think they have anything around saying we are trying to do this with employee and do that with employee. They have a very simple, straight answer that the people we have are going to take decisions which are best for the organization and for themselves. And if we feel after a very short period of time that they are not the right person, we will make it financially comfortable for him to leave the organization. That's it. Coming together. But the core that they drive is that you have to be bringing value to the organization every day. So it's one of the most the pressure cooker of furnace-like organizations to work in. Most people are emotionally not resilient enough to work in Netflix. So I remember I had made this, there was something similar of a question that came up in one of the IIMs during my pre-placement talk, that why should we join your organization and why we shouldn't. My response to the majority of the room was that most of you shouldn't join this organization. I said, if I look at the mix of the class, most of you have traditional, standard, straight line lives, education choices, career choices to have arrived here. Whereas the organization you are sitting for this pre-placement talk has none of those things figured out for you all. The first thing that you will ask is, A, B, C are available in that multinational or that large conglomerate. We don't have it. You shouldn't expect it. And if those things make you feel worried, then so Netflix might be a great organization for a very small, very, very thin layer of talent in this world. Forget this country. It's not for everyone. So while everybody may think it would be great to get a job at Netflix, not necessarily the easiest thing to be with. And again, my personal opinion, I am no subject matter expert on Netflix. This is from experience of a bunch of people from my industry who have seen go there And from, again, hearsay examples of how it is to survive, to thrive there. Many people survive, don't thrive.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, panel. Thanks for the great insights. So I am Shyam Patra from the MBA HRM batch of 23-25. So I have a particular question for Arnab sir. So from Fox to Disney and then to Geo, the organization has went through a lot of changes. And like, does that create a sense of chaos within the employees regarding that? And if yes, what were the steps taken by the organization to mitigate that and increase the retention of the employees?
So, even despite all of these changes, actually the organization has been relatively stable. So, the ownership has changed at the top, which means probably on a stock market index the ticker may change. The lives of close to initially around 55,000 employees who moved into a larger Disney kind of organization, or even now in the merger in India, around 6,000 employees. It's not dramatically impacted. It's not that next day morning when you go to the organization that things are different. But maybe things are different. Maybe certain policies have changed, certain ways of working has changed, your manager may have changed, your leader may have changed. I usually believe that in such situations, the only thing that helps is clarify and over-communicate. A lot of chaos and the so-called nervousness and, chaos, ambiguity, and all of those things are also gets exaggerated over coffee conversations. If you are working most of the day, then you don't realize what has changed because you are busy. So what is more important is to ensure that the moment you are moving through such a large change, to clarify people's jobs and roles. That is where most organizations struggle, because that decision making is not simple, not straight line, and the time that is taken is where a period of anxiety does exist. But anxiety also has a downward slope of losing its novelty value. After some time you realize that things are just the way it is and let's get on with life. You need novelty value in coffee table conversations, that's it. You know that cooler, coffee station, lunch. After some time somebody will say, yaar same cheez roz kyun baat kar rahe ho? Kuch naya baat karo.
Thank you so much.
It's not as dramatic as it sounds.
So can I ask all of you the elephant in the room? Which is, what is that your batch thinks about the 70-hour work week?
And would you be willing to stretch it to 90? So 20 years ago there was an article in newspapers about McKinsey's 100-hour week. I don't know if any of you would have seen it. I don't think it may be available on Google or internet, but physical archives of Wall Street Journal or Newsweek, somewhere it had come out, how McKinsey executives in their billing to clients were showing that they were working 100 hours a week.
And this has been a way of life for doctors, actors and lawyers for times immemorial. So there was, we never called that out. So what does this batch therefore think?
Okay, we have someone to
And
start.
before you say, Amitabh Bachchan currently puts in 84 hours every week. He is 82 years old.
Alright,
Good afternoon, Adams. So I had a different question in mind, but now that you've asked this. So my approach to this particular question would be that firstly it's very specific to the job. And this is, I saw in one of the interviews that CEO of Mr. Thapar was talking about the amount of work that a CEO puts into their own organization versus the amount of work that an employee is expected to put has to be very different, because the results that each of them are getting are exponentially different. I mean, the employee, if they are getting the CEO salary, they would definitely want to work 70 to 90 hours, because that is the sort of work that goes into earning that money. So that, I think, is one justification. Similar for Amitabh Bachchan, if I am given the amount of money that Amitabh Bachchan is getting, I would love to work 80 hours. And along with that, the sort of stature in society and the respect and all of those things are part of the work that he puts in. So I think that has a lot to do with the proportion of work versus what employees get, because at the end of the day we are all working towards someone else's venture, towards someone else's benefit. I mean, if I have my own restaurant, for example, the kind of work that I would put in is very different from a waiter or from a chef. So that is my perspective. And my question actually was that, very similar to what we are discussing right now. So a multi-generational workforce is a reality that we are in, and in accordance to that, our talent strategies need to be differentiated. It can't be like what we talk about, one size fits all. It cannot happen. So I have, through the conversation, I have heard Mr. Pal's opinion on it. I wanted to know from Mr. Mishra and ma'am that on what basis do organizations define that this is the sort of philosophy we'll go for? For example, sir said that Disney has a particular brand, and if you're attracted to it, this is what we're offering. You're welcome to join, and if this is not what fits your bill, it's okay if you can leave. So I don't think that is the case with all organizations. So what differentiates the strategy or the philosophy that you go for attracting or retaining talent?
I think the first and foremost is for any organization, that's true for Disney, Netflix, any other company, is to know what is your core strength, right, as an employer, and be very honest about it, be very truthful about it, and play around those core elements, right, and you can call it in any name that you want to call it. In HR folks, we call it employee value proposition or whatever, brand, and communicate that and try and be as honest about that in your everyday life, right? So to give you an example, during my days at Jio, when I was trying to build a tech co in a telco, right? A telecommunication company who was also wanting to do OTT, like Jio TV, Jio Cinema, also wanting to do, Ajio.com, which is an e-commerce, platform, also wanting to do Jio Money, which is financial services. The talent that we wanted to attract was not telecom talent, it was tech talent, right? But then, every tech talent had this view about Jio or Reliance, right? So beyond a point, I would be, being very dishonest to my candidates or my talent if I say, oh, you know what, Jio is like Netflix or like Amazon or like, Flipkart, right? So therefore, it was important for me as a senior HR person to understand what are the core strengths that Jio brings to the table. Vastness, right? Ability for people to make huge impact on the society. Unrestricted access to capital, because Jio was trying to build an empire which would change the country, right? Your ability to access millions and millions of customers who are a part of the Jio. And while we all knew that acquiring cost of acquisition of customers were like going exponential for any digital platforms, and the sheer fact that you have such a huge array of diversified talent available
right? So therefore, while you pitched to a senior candidate, it was about the magnanimity or the vastness of the opportunity and what the person can do to impact the country, right? You were selling Digital India, right? And while selling it to an IITian would say, why would I join you with 16 lakh salary while somebody else can pay me 36 lakh, was the fact that, hey, you know what, you build some applications which would create impact on, again, millions of people, right? You can change from Geo Money one day to go to some cutting edge broadcasting technology in Geo Cinema or Geo TV to do something else in retail, right? So know your strength, know your organization's strength, right? And celebrate those strengths, right? By meaningful communication policies and processes is what really helps.
I'll give you two personal stories. One from Vodafone and one from the logistics business. Vodafone and Vodafone Idea later on was going through transformation, transition, whatever you call it, and an industry which was changing dynamically, which was different. From being just an active telecom player to a digital telecom player. Now, there is a lot of noise in the industry saying that ye band pad jayega. So when I'm getting someone to the table at a senior level, what I would look for is in the individual is basically how can the individual change the ship completely differently. And what the individual is bringing to the table or looking at me for is basically, can he get a freedom to do what he envisions? Because at that level, they are not looking at safety and security of the jobs anymore, as much as a person beginning or the mid-management table would look at. So it's a generational workforce differently and the industry realm differently. The business case is different. I'll give you the second example, which is logistics, a dust and grime industry where finding woman is a rarity. Finding an educated woman is still a rarity, and finding an educated woman running the ship is the biggest rarity. Okay? Now here, it's an industry which is 96% unorganized, and all the players or names that you see in are only fighting for the 4% of the market. So when I talk about logistics, when I hire a leader, outside the industry, all that he comes to the table first is, other than the trucking business, what else do I have to do? But logistics is not about trucking. So I have to start selling a proposition before I can even talk about how the industry can be a game changer. Because you have the opportunity of being an Amazon yourself here, which people have not yet realized, which possibly because of the conglomerate called Mahindra is a brand name which you can build. I have to fuel the leadership into thinking differently. At the same time, if I were to come and hire you from campus, I'm not the choice. I have to sell the value proposition saying, hey, logistics is great. Do you know that Flipkart, Zepto, Amazon and all cannot come to your doorstep till Mahindra Logistics operates completely in this country? So all your last mile deliveries, everything is something that logistics does. Mahindra Logistics does. Till I give you those data points, you will never be able to understand what's happening behind the table. Okay, so there are different propositions. The business case here is different. Now in this, I went trying to look for a woman who can run my trucking business. And I found one. There are only 3 women who can run a trucking business. And I found one who is willing to join me, who will run the trucking business for me. The proposition is different again. Why did I want only a woman to run the business? Because the industry is corrupt. let me put for lack of a better word, money changes. Okay, and no harm intended to any of the genders here, but we realized that we needed to break the ground by getting someone in who can actually call it out as two hoots. So we started looking for candidates who can call it out two hoots. And then we said, okay, the gender can do that, let's get women here. And then we started looking for women, and then we got one. Business proposition is different. You're trying to create something from scratch. You're trying to reimagine the marketplace. You're trying to call it an Amazon from the dust and grinds, nuts and bolts industry. It's a complete visual enamel that you first have to build before you go and hire the talent that you want from the market. So it all depends upon the business cases that you want to build. So, long story, but propositions are different.
Oh, no, that definitely did answer my question. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon everyone, I'm Akshay Pandey from the MBA batch of 24-26. So my question is, we're seeing that HR analytics is slowly becoming a game changer in the field of talent management. So how can companies and organizations use these key metrics in order to prevent and predict attrition?
Nobody is worried about attrition nowadays. So I don't know, maybe... No, okay. Let me not be very flippant about my response. This entire paradigm around HR analytics will solve many of our problems is incorrect. HR analytics is what like a HR handbook used to be maybe 30 years ago. Just one more thing that you have with yourself. How you use it depends on your ability. So every company nowadays has large analytics teams. I am yet to find lot of case studies where they have brilliantly used data and analytics to take right decisions. Rather, a lot seems to have gone wrong post-COVID with so-called models which have been based on assumptions which were fairly borderline, not very thought through. So let's leave HR analytics as a very simplistic tool for all of us. It's not going to necessarily solve some of these complex problems. It will need slightly more than just analytics.
Okay, so slightly contrarian view, right? So it certainly helps, right? And you know, while the tides might have sound, you know, pre-COVID, post-COVID, if you really look at what happened during COVID, especially technology, massive hiring, massive resignation, right? Everybody was trying to do a platform. Number of startups, you know, funding went up. Number of startups went up. You know, HR analytics did help when I was in Geo because the moment you try and at least understand the fundamental variables which are leading to attrition, right? And get your leaders to have some patience to understand those variable and controllable, non-controllable ones. It helps in taking certain decisions which would help you manage the attrition to a certain extent, right? And from that to a model which would kind of say that, you know, Satya would have a higher probability than Arnav of leaving, right? Basis against certain variables. It did help in taking some proactive measures, especially for top developer to take some very specific retention measures, right? Including at times changing managers, right? Because there were about, you know, 14 odd variables that were used in the model to kind of, you know, figure out attrition prediction, right? And one of the model was that manager's promotion rate, right? Not the employee's promotion rate, but the manager's promotion rate. And what we kind of realized that if that rate has been slower, there is a general unhappiness with the manager that impacts employee retention. To Arnab's point, I think I agree. Analytics is not the solution. It gives you some data. For HR to take that data, make it meaningful insight, be courageous to have a conversation with decision maker, and come up with some actionable is what really makes HR person. Analytics is not only a solution or a panacea.
Thank you, sir.
One thing that I'll add, and this is probably useful for everyone, whenever in future, wherever you all are working, data and analytics, please learn how to remove extreme events out of your data sets. You need clean data, you need data during a period where there are not large external impacts on that. Data analytics has to be layered with common sense before you can get to using it to solve certain problems.
Okay, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anvesha Gupta from MBHRM batch of 2426. And my question to the panel is, what are some of the initiatives that companies can take to retain the fact that they have very different job expectations as compared to the other generations?
First and foremost, are you looking for anything different that your parents looked for in a job?
Ma'am, I think the Gen Z workforce is generally more focused towards flexibility more than compensations. So that.
What would you look for? Be very honest and tell us what you would look for.
So I think in a similar way, I would value flexibility over compensation.
So we'll give you flexibility and an organization will pay you 50% of your expectations. Will you still take the job?
No ma'am, that's definitely. Both of them should be there. There should be a mix of both.
Right.
But when it comes to leveraging one over the other, I think flexibility ranks higher to me.
And would your parents have chosen that differently?
Yes ma'am, I believe they would have chosen it differently and flexibility did not matter to them a lot. So,
and why would that be?
Ma'am, because nowadays I think it's more of a trend that a lot of people are going for. So if I'm an employee, if I see a company is following a trend and a friend of mine is working there, so I would like to have that.
Exactly my point. Why do you want to follow a trend? Why don't you want to follow what your heart wants? You want to follow a trend that your friend is following, and that friend is following another friend who is a trend, and that friend is following someone else. What is it that you want? See, my classic example for this is my grandfather possibly applies to some of you, not all of you. My grandfather worked for survival. My father worked for security. I work for a career. Hopefully my kid will work for a dream. Why do you want to follow someone else? Which is why we said it is a fad. Don't get into fads.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Good afternoon, esteemed speakers. I am Kanishka Singh from MBHRM batch of 2426. So, ma'am addressed the question of the elephant in the room. So, I have a question for all the panelists with respect to that. So my question is that usually when we talk about doctors and lawyers, whatever hours they're investing, they're productive hours. But what is the belief of all the esteemed speakers over here that if the white collar, productive or the working hours of white collar employees is increased, would they be equally productive if they were working lesser number of hours?
I don't think, I'm so sorry, it was never about hours anytime. It was never about hours. A lot of organizations in their offer letters or the pre-offer letters, pre-offers anyways it doesn't happen anymore, the offer letters don't even talk about core hours now. They only say, trust you, that you are intelligent enough to know when your work for the day has come to an end or your deliverables for the day are done, and you will carry on the deliverables and give it to them on time. So why are we making it about time in any case? If the deliverable takes an Arnab only 5 hours, but an Annapurna can take 8 hours, so be it, but that's the deliverable. I don't think so it was ever about time. It was all about what your deliverable is. Each one at the end of the year will get assessed on the deliverable only. So it is not about flexibility, it is not about a work week. We are catching on to fads. Let's look at what works for us. And all of us, there is a theory called 6 degrees of separation. The principle on which LinkedIn was built. Which basically is a theory says, all of us know each other and in some form or the other, and the only difference between you and the next person is only 6 degrees. So I know an earner through someone, that someone knows someone, that someone knows someone. So finally I'll end up knowing someone, and the first person that I know across is just 6 degrees of separation. And this was the principle on which LinkedIn built. At some point, all this will trickle into each other, but there is still a 6 degrees of separation, which means that there is something which is very unique for you, a proposition which will work only for you. And that is the proposition that you have to look for in organizations when you're building your careers, and at homes when you are building your personal families as well. So it was never about hours.
And if I may add, sorry, I'm a little colorblind, so I don't still understand the difference between blue and white. So white means manufacturing, is that? Or blue is manufacturing, so white is people like us. Okay. Alright, so gotcha. So and honestly, what really matters is outcome, right? And style. Arnab might have a very different style. I am a thinking style. For the same work, I would like to think, take my own time, do some research, write 2-3 models while Arnab knows what needs to be done, and he does that, right? So I think organizations are more, at least holding people like us accountable on outcomes than number of hours, right? My personal experience says that as you grow, unfortunately the expectations are increasing, right? And with your limited, intelligence and network and whatever it is, at times it takes more hours to get to the same outcome or a larger outcome that you get.
Thank you, sir.
Just to lighten the mood, don't take Annapurna and Satyadeep seriously. I am not some trigger happy psycho Bengali, okay? 5 घंटे में कर दूंगा, टक से कर दूंगा. I also think, just to clarify.
Good afternoon, panel members. Thank you for taking out time and addressing us today.
to continue the chain of thought and as ma'am mentioned and brought out the elephant in the room, I come from a hospitality background. For hours, so basically working hours for me wasn't a concept that I was taught right from college. So there have been times when I've given 22-hour shifts without a pain in my neck or my leg or complaints, because I was just enjoying my work a lot. And paid bare minimum, if I may highlight that as well. Something that I've observed, especially from the hospitality background, is the pay in relation to the amount of work you put in or the time you've put in is there's a huge disparity in terms of how it's there in India or how it's there abroad, which is, I feel, an issue with a lot of other industries as well. So, do you think sometime in the future, probably sooner than later, we will probably see this disparity going down in terms of pay being somehow connected to the amount of time and effort you put into your job, because that is valued a lot outside in Western countries, but not so much right now in India.
I think I'm very happy that finally there is a question that takes us away from human resources to more economics, demand, supply, wealth of nations kind of scenario. In your country, there was an Insta reel joke I heard on the flight कि कटिंग चाय मंगवाया था, इतना बड़ा पैकेट में उसके ऊपर गिफ्ट रैप करके पैकेट में करके बारिश में रेनकोट डाल के एक स्विगी वाला डिलीवर करने आया था कांपते हुए. That is the state of labor in this country. That's how cheap labor is. Now, we in this room have been able to break away, but still we are talking about oversupply of engineers, we are talking about oversupply of manpower, we are talking about unemployment percentages which basically means that there will be certain industries which will continuously fight for wafer thin margin. If you have read the case study, the problem is not about working hours or burnout or lack of flexibility, but it is probably about a services organization whose profitability margin is so thin that its staffing model and its benefits and wage and flexibility and employment benefit package, everything models that. So the way to break out of it is to find industries or to find roles where, or to build your capability to such a level that you will be ahead of the curve. Because if you are in the fat middle, you will always be battling a scenario where you will feel overworked and underpaid.
Thank you.
Good afternoon everyone, I am Purvi Sharma from MBH. How can companies bring a sense of purpose and belonging for the employees and amongst the employees?
Very good question. Thank you. Finally, something for us to think.
Last week, I had the pleasure of interacting with the outgoing CHRO of HUL, Nitin Paranjpe. Okay, and what I'm going to share is only his story, not mine. Okay. Where he spoke about the same thing: how do organizations build purpose and impact? What stayed with me is basically the fact that he said, systems, processes, anything that you put in is only going to improve the ceiling, flooring. Okay. All this only improves the flooring. At the end of the day, the kind of people that you take or talent that you take is only the one which will improve the ceiling. But even I did not realize it till I had spent almost 2 to 2.5 decades in my role. And the reason was because I was only left-brained. And he said, we make diversity, and he did not come in as part of diversity and inclusion, he came in as part of leadership talk. We make diversity about gender, ethnic, races, etc. We never make diversity about left brain, right brain combinations. Purpose, and that's how he defined purpose. He said, look, at the end of the day, everyone wants to be a hero. No one comes to the workplace saying, "Aaj mujhe kuch nahi karna hai kaam." Everyone wants to be a hero. But as part of the heroic act, they want to align with what the organization also thinks. So if the organization has a purpose to which I can relate to as an individual, and as a leader, if I'm able to bring that set of talent to the team or ensure existing talent aligns with it, then I have made my job easy, or that's successful. So purpose is all about what's the landing point impact. Businesses run for profits. So you can't have a war cry which is holier than thou and not meet your business results. So it's a thin line where you bring those two together. Why did he say left brain and right brain? Is because he said, look, we talk about IQ, IQ, IQ. Suddenly we have woken up to something called EQ now. But what we all forget is the fact there is ye Ganga hai, wo Jamuna hai. There is an underflowing river called Saraswati which we have forgotten, which is called MQ, moral quotient. Each of your decision is driven with the morality in mind. Is it right? The banking firms of the 2008 financial crisis failed, not because the leaders did not know what was the impact going to be. They did it knowing fully well what the impact will be, but the moral quotient was missing. Governance mechanisms cannot help it until individuals drive the change. So it finally boils down to what M.K. Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see. It starts with you. Organization is a set of people coming together. It's not be all. You have to sell it. Long story short.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Due to the paucity of time, we'll take one final question.
Good afternoon, panel. I'm Parth Satiswal from the batch of 24-26. So I just have a question which Avni have already answered, but I just wanted to ask a little further more. So you said that the profit margins have to be also looked upon when you are actually talking about the income that has to be provided. So recently, economic survey came, and according to the government of India, the corporate profits have actually been 15 years high, whereas the income that has to be provided to the employees have actually substantially lagged behind. And there also, when I talk to few of my colleagues who are there in the industry, they say that when we are talking about longevity, it is usually that the pay is a factor when we have to actually switch so that they can actually increase their income. So don't you think that we also have to think about that there is a huge disparity and how the income which has to be provided to the employees affecting the longevity?
This is a slightly higher order question around how nations and, again, like I mentioned, about the distribution of wealth. Because what the government's view on some of these reports are, is the government's view. And then there is a set of economists who have a contrarian view to what the government's view is. So at no point of time is this the right model, but this is my personal view. countries where you feel that there is far better quality of living or equitable distribution of wealth is not funded by people who are in employment. There are usually two models. Either they are countries where there is a very high level of culture of entrepreneurship, innovation. Second, the participation of people paying tax to the government and government funneling that tax back into creating services better for the citizens is very well established. And third is the laws and governance around it, punishment is extremely stringent. When these three things do not coexist, you will either have concentration of wealth, not have enough, like the 4% of the population in this country who pay income tax are continuously groaning and moaning about the fact that we kiss tax pay kar rahe hain. Because we are not getting the benefit of it. Finally, if you want to break away from what you believe is again, that thick middle, the 80-20, you have to be that 20%. That may not necessarily come through by saying, the level of merit increase every year needs to increase by 2%. Nobody is going to become wealthy by that way. And trust me, in our country, most progressive organizations have given increases in pay significantly more than the inflation index. If you see all around you, don't you feel things have improved? Or do you think things have gone down? Again, that view might be depending on what is the cohort or what is the set you are analyzing. It's a very complex topic. You can end up having a full course around it saying, is this how wealth is going to be built? Is this equitable? Is this fair? I don't know the answer to this. This is probably the toughest question that can get posed to anyone, and you will never get a clear answer to it.
I think the same thing, right? I mean, if you go and two largest compensation consulting companies in the country are Aon and Mercer. I don't know how many of you have seen Aon salary increase survey. Anyone? If you haven't, please do, because you don't have to be working in the industry to look at some of this data. 2024 was lower, right, versus 2023, right? 2023 was lower versus 2022 because we all knew what happened in 2021 and 2022. 2024 seems to be brighter than 2023, right? Now this juxtaposition of the data, which is profitability, corporate profitability all-time high, salary increases all-time low, could be just coincidental, right? It's never the intent to grow or become more profitable at the cost of the employees, because the smartest CEOs know that only the most engaged workforce would get them to get to that profitability index, right? But yeah, depending on the year that you're in, the dynamics that you're in, how you predict the future is going to be, you take some decision on compensation. But trust you me, India is still lucky. I mean, we're still seeing wage inflation happening. I know a lot of my friends in Europe and America who don't even complain about it. They're pretty happy that they have a job. They're happy they're getting to do some meaningful work, right? So I won't read too much into what you just talked about.
Thank you so much, sir. A huge thank you to our alumni for sharing their invaluable insights and to the batch for their active participation. We hope you find this session enriching and insightful.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for a very special moment, the official launch of Express, the official magazine of the XIMHR Alumni Committee.
Express is more than just a magazine. It is a reflection of the ideas, experiences and aspirations HR fraternity at XIM. It is the signature magazine that highlights the remarkable achievements of our alumni while capturing the essence of life at our institution. Beyond celebrating their accomplishments, it also serves as a chronicle of campus events, initiatives and engagement. Insightful guest lectures and industry interactions to cultural fests and student-led initiatives, the magazine offers a comprehensive view of the dynamic ecosystem shaping our legacy.
To mark this grand occasion, we would like to invite our esteemed guests to join us on stage for the official unveiling of Express. We are also honored to have our senior core team of the XIMHR Alumni Committee to join us for this momentous launch. May I now request the esteemed guests along with our senior core team to kindly come forward for the launch.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, we proudly present to you Express. Let us have a big round of applause as we officially unveil the magazine. Thank you to our esteemed guests and the senior core team for being a part of this significant milestone. We hope Express continues to inspire, inform and strengthen our HR community. We would now like to request the senior core team to present the mementos to our speakers as a token of appreciation from the HR Alumni Committee and School of Human Resource Management, Exam University. We would like to invite Professor Sanjay Bhattacharya sir and Shubhra Patnaik.
Let's take a moment to reflect on the insightful discussions, engaging interactions, and invaluable takeaways from today's event. It has been truly remarkable of learning and exploration made possible by the presence of our esteemed speakers, our faculty, and my dear batchmates. To officially conclude this memorable event, I now invite Alok, the Deputy Coordinator of the XIMHR Alumni Committee, to deliver the vote of thanks. Please join me in welcoming him.
Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. These are the words by Helen Keller. And as we come to the end of this enriching and inspiring event, XPLORATE 2025, it is my privilege to extend the vote of thanks on the behalf of entire HR Alumni Committee. Today has been a day of learning, collaboration, exploration, and none of it would have been possible without the contributions of so many wonderful individuals. First and foremost, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to esteemed panelists, Satyadeep sir, Annapurna ma'am, and Arnab sir. Thank you so much for gracing with your presence here today. Your expertise and perspectives has truly added immense value to this event, inspiring us to think differently and approach challenges with innovation and confidence. We would also like to express tremendous gratitude to the Vice Chancellor of Exam University, Father Anthony R. Ugari, for his unwavering support and strength. Thank you, sir, for your time. Also, it has been both an honor and privilege to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed Dean School of HRM, Dr. Anand and Associate Professor Shubhra Patnaik, who is also the alumnus of the school. Your unwavering commitment to this academic excellence and student development continues to inspire us all. We would also like to thank and extend a heartfelt gratitude to Associate Dean GAS, Professor Savita Mohanty. Thank you, ma'am, for gracing us with your presence. To all the respected faculty members and admin team present here today, thank you so much for your continuous guidance, support, and encouragement. A special thanks to Professor Sanjay Bhattacharya, our moderator for today's panel, for skillfully steering the conversation and fostering engaging dialogue that has left us with all the key takeaways. We would also like to thank Moshni ma'am, our faculty coordinator, who supported us throughout this journey. I would also like to thank Digambar sir and Annie ma'am because they were instrumental in making this event a success. For the constant and professional media coverage throughout XPLORATE, we extend our gratitude to the Illuminatics Committee who worked with us tirelessly. To all the support staff without whom this event wouldn't have been possible, a huge thank you to you. To the senior core of HR Alumni Committee, thank you so much for guiding us, preparing us, and leading us to conduct XPLORATE 2025 in such a professional manner. To the senior and the junior batch, you are the heart and soul of XPLORATE 2025. Thank you so much. To all the participants who asked questions today, thank you so much for your never-ending hunger to learn and making this event so engaging. And last but not least, my team, the junior team of Alcom. As we draw the curtains to close on this day, thank you so much for your never-ending hunger to chase things professionally, doing things right. And once again, thank you, my team, the HR Junior Alumni Committee team. Thank you once again. Have a wonderful day. Now I request the entire team of HR Alumni Committee to come on the stage and pose for a photograph with the dignitaries.